Hello everyone. I am going to discuss the science and technology part that was asked in this year's prelims paper. Now from science and technology point of view, I would say that this question paper was not easy, especially compared to what we have been used to seeing. We have seen that if you look at question papers of 2016 or 17 etc., you'll see that the question papers had direct current affairs. The kinds of facts that were given were direct in nature, not much to go beyond what was the basic fact. Now 2018 paper had changed this a bit. And in 2019, the question paper that we see, you have seen that there has been a lot of difference that has come. So that's why I'm saying that this is not an easy question paper. And as we go on discussing each and every question, we'll see why certain questions were very difficult and some of them were actually very confusing also. So let's go to all the questions that were asked in the question paper. Let's see question number 1. Just pause the screen and just look at the question once and see what exactly do you think that the answer would be. And then come back to the discussion. So what we see here is that there are 4 statements that have been given. The first thing that I would say is that if there are 4 statements given, this is not an easy question. Although if you read the statements, it's actually not a difficult question, but I would still say that it is a medium difficulty level question only because there are 4 statements given here. Now let's analyze each and every statement. The first statement says, in augmented reality, a simulated environment is created and the physical world is completely shut out. Second statement says, in virtual reality, images generated from a computer are projected onto real life objects or surroundings. Now, first of all, if you know even a little about virtual reality and augmented reality, you would know that these definitions have been interchanged. So the second statement that you see is actually augmented reality, and the first statement that you see here is actually virtual reality. So I can say for sure that statement number 1 and statement number 2 are wrong. So if you look at the options, first option is gone, third option is gone. So you're only left with option B and option D. So statement 3 says AR allows individuals to be present in the world and improves the experience using the camera of a smartphone or PC. Now, if you know about this app, Snapchat, you would very well be aware of the fact that it uses something called as filters. And what do these filters do? You know that it enhances the images. You add a lot of filters and then the image looks something else. So it augments the reality. What is the meaning of augmenting? The meaning of augmenting is to increase the value of something. So that's why it adds to the value of the camera that is being used, and that's why these filters are actually examples of augmented reality. So you can say that statement number 3 is correct. So if you see, there is only one statement which says that statement number 3 is correct, along with obviously statement number 4. So that's why your correct option will be option B. Let's move on to the second question. Take a minute and just see what the question is. Now this, I would say, is actually a very, very difficult question. Unless somebody is very clear with the concepts of biotechnology, and not only biotechnology but also genetics, I am not expecting that you would know the answer of this question in and out. So let's try to analyze each and every statement that has been given here. Now, one thing to note, they are asking you what is not correct. So option A says functional chromosomes can be created by joining segments of DNA taken from cells of different species. Let's hold on to this. Second says pieces of artificial functional DNA can be created in laboratory. This is correct. This we know that is going to be correct. Third statement says a piece of DNA taken out from an animal can be made to replicate outside a living cell in a laboratory. This is also correct. And then finally you have cells taken out from plants and animals can be made to undergo cell division in laboratory petri dishes. This is also correct. So if you just try to analyze what is being given here, statement number 2, 3 and 4 are very close. And they all are talking about the same thing, whether or not artificial functional DNA can be created in the laboratory, and in how many ways, in what way can it be done? And all these three statements are actually correct. Now, when you come to the first statement, that is option number A, here I would say that the second part is actually correct. That you can actually take the DNA of other organisms and they can join together. And this is what you do in recombinant DNA technology. When you make recombinant DNA, you don't bother about where are you taking that DNA from, correct? Let's say if I take a very small example, BT cotton. So in BT cotton, the BT part that is being taken is not being taken from a cotton plant or any plant that is related to cotton. It is being taken from a bacteria. So this bacteria is completely different in its structure when you compare it to something like cotton. So that's why it is completely different. Similarly, if you talk about something called as golden rice. So in case of golden rice also, what we try to do is we try to enhance the amount of vitamin A that is present in golden rice by taking a DNA segment from daffodil plant. So daffodil and rice are not related at all. But still, you had something which was important, which was required in rice, and you took it from daffodil. So this was beta carotene actually. So this can be done, that DNA from cells of different species can be taken and combined together. But you cannot make a functional chromosome out of it. This is what makes this statement wrong. So a functional chromosome cannot be created by joining segments of DNA. Yes, the segments of DNA can be taken together, can be joined together from various species. That's possible for us. But creating an entire chromosome, a functional chromosome out of it, is something which is still in the future, has not been done yet. So that's why statement 1 is wrong, and since we have been asked what is not correct, statement 1 is statement A is the correct option. Let's move on to the next question, which is consider the following statements, and these statements are about digital signature. Now you have 3 statements given and you have 4 options. If you see, 3 out of 4 options have statement number 3 in them. So that's why this should be the first statement that you should analyze. Because if at all statement number 3 is wrong, then all these 3 statements have been eliminated. So that's why the first statement that you should see in such a question is statement number 3. So statement number 3 says an electronic method of signing an electronic document and ensuring that the original content is unchanged. This is a perfect definition for digital signature. So unfortunately, statement number 3 is correct. So I can only eliminate option A for now. Let's see the other 2 options that you have. An electronic record that identifies the certifying authority issuing it. Let's hold on to it. Statement number 2 says used to serve as a proof of identity of an individual to access information or server on internet. Now let's come back to statement number 1. An electronic record that identifies the certifying authority issuing it. Now this certifying authority could be an organization, could be an individual. But what happens is when you use digital signature, what happens with digital signature is that you have the record of who had sent this. So a person after sending a digitally signed document cannot deny that no, I was not the one who had sent it. It was sent by somebody else faked it. That cannot be done. So that's why it actually identifies the certifying authority, which could be, as I said, an individual or an organization. So that's why this is one area where digital signature is used. So statement number 1 is correct. So when statement number 1 is correct, you have only one option where statement 1 and 3 are present together. So the only possibility that you have here is statement number D. So even if you don't know whether the second statement given here is correct or wrong, still you can mark the correct option here, which is statement number or option number D. Let's move on to the next question. In the context of wearable technology, which of the following tasks is or are accomplished by wearable devices? Now, one thing that we can see this time is that UPSC has been a very big fan of apps. I talked about Snapchat, something that they took from there in a way, you can say. And when we talk about wearable devices, this is also something which has all of a sudden took the market. Last 2-3 years, you'll see that a lot of people have been using the wearable devices. For example, Apple Watch. So if I take just the example of Apple Watch, the first statement is correct. Local identification of a person. You have something called as GPS, and you can track the locality of a person who is wearing that wearable device. So statement number 1 is correct. So we are left with A and D. B and C are gone. So now I just need to see whether 2 is correct or not, or 3 is correct or not. So if 2 or 3, either one of the two are correct, then in that case D is the option, otherwise A is the option. Statement 2 says sleep monitoring of a person. Okay. 3 says assisting the hearing impaired person. Now wearable device. So hearing aid is something that is worn by many people who have a problem in listening to things. So that's why statement number 3 is definitely correct. So I can say that option D is the correct option. And obviously, you know that sleep monitoring of a person can be done using wearable devices. And many of the devices are doing it. And even with the help of a small app, this can be done by your mobile devices also nowadays. So that's why the correct option is going to be option D. Next question. RNA interference technology has gained popularity in the last few years. Why? This again, I would say that it's a moderately difficult question. So the first option that you have is it is used in developing gene slicing therapies. This is correct. So 1 is present in these 3. These 3 are correct. B is gone. It can be used in developing therapies for the treatment of cancer. Yes, it can be. And this is one of the research areas when it comes to RNA interference technology. So that's why statement number 2 is correct. So you are left with only one option now, which is statement A. And if I just read out statement number 4, it can be used to produce crop plants that are resistant to viral pathogens. Yes, it is correct. It has a huge agricultural application when it comes to RNA interference technology. So that's why statement number 4 is also correct. So that's why we are left with 1, 2, and 4. Question 7. Recently, scientists observed merger of giant black holes billions of light years away from the Earth. What is the significance of this observation? Now, keywords for you are merger of giant black holes. Now, black holes have constantly been news. First, it was about the merger of giant black holes, and then the first picture that was ever taken of a black hole that was in news just 2-3 months back. Now, you should not confuse here. See, let's go to the options first. Option A says Higgs boson particles were detected. Not at all. It was done at CERN. Right? A is gone. B, gravitational waves were detected. I can hold on to this because black holes are always associated with gravitational waves. Then, possibility of intergalactic space travel through wormhole. This is only happening in movies. It's not happening in reality. This is wrong. Statement D, it enables the scientists to understand singularity. Now, singularity is something that is associated with black hole, not only black hole, also with the Big Bang theory. So, what does singularity mean? That you have a small or you have a very dense area where all the particles are present at one place. And when we go back to Big Bang theory, we say that at the time of the birth of the universe, the entire universe was nothing but just a single particle which was even smaller than the size of a proton. And that was singularity. In case of black holes also, we draw black holes something like this. We say that this is the boundary or called as event horizon, and this area can be called as the singularity. So singularity is actually associated with black hole, and that's why this could be confusing. But what we are talking about, as I said, the keywords for you are merger of giant black holes. Now, merger of giant black holes would be a very violent process. And any process which is very violent process in the entire universe will always be associated with detection of gravitational wave. So that's why the correct option is option B. And this happened last December 2018. If you look at the news articles of 4th and 5th December, you will see all these articles coming up with respect to merger of giant black holes. So merger of giant black holes, collision of stars, collision of galaxies. All these are some very violent processes, and these are the processes where from you will get the gravitational waves. And that's why the correct option for you is option B, gravitational waves were detected. Let's move on to the next question. Which of the following are the reasons for occurrence of multi-drug resistance in microbial pathogens in India? So two keywords, multi-drug resistance in India. Now, multi-drug resistance is something that has been in news constantly. And not only last year or last 2-3 years, it has been in news for more than last, you can say 7-8 years. 2014 mains you had one question from multi-drug resistance. So what exactly do we mean by multi-drug resistance, and what happens is there are many reasons to it. One of the most common reasons is actually taking incorrect doses of antibiotics to cure diseases. So that's why statement 2 is definitely correct, and because of which A, B and D are correct. Now, first statement says genetic predisposition of some people. Now this is not correct, and this is something which is associated with gene therapy. Because when we talk about gene therapy, we talk about what kind of genetic predisposition is present in an individual, because based on that, gene therapy will be provided to that individual. So that's why this is not related to multi-drug resistance. So 1 is wrong, meaning, see, since 2 was correct, C was already gone. And since 1 is wrong, this is also gone. So you are left with only B and D. Now it comes down to whether statement number 4 is correct or not. So statement 4 says multiple chronic diseases in some people. Now this actually is a very confusing statement, because this, I would say, is not a direct cause. Why? Because if we talk about the causes could be if you are taking wrong medicines, causes could be if you are taking overdose of medicine or incorrect dose of medicine. Reasons could be also the factories where all these antibiotics are being made, or you can say the biomedical waste that is being generated from there. And there was a very beautiful article in the Hindu also, where they had in detail covered all the aspects of how from a factory where you are making these medicines, it can become a biomedical waste and can increase the drug resistance in all the bacteria which are getting access to all these antibiotics. So that can be one reason. Another reason could be farm animals using antibiotics in livestock farming. What happens is generally the cattle that are present or the livestock that is present, they are administered with a lot of antibiotics, much more than what's required, and that becomes a reason. And that's why statement number 3 is correct. So statement number 3 being correct still does not make any difference for us. Now, multiple chronic diseases is not a direct cause, and that's why I would say that statement number 4 is wrong. And for me, the most appropriate option would be B. But what can happen is that if you look at statement number 4, when you have multiple chronic diseases, it means that you have to take a lot of medicines, and you have to take a lot of different kinds of medicines. And this, in a way, in certain cases, can become a cause of the fact that many of the microbes can become resistant. But it has not been established as a result. It has not been established as a cause of something like this happening. So that's why still I would say that statement number 4 is wrong. But there are still chances that there can be ambiguity among students. So you can hold on to this, but I would say that the most appropriate is statement number B, or that is only 2 and 3 are correct and 4 is not correct, because this is a very indirect cause. And it's not something that a general student who is going for a UPSC exam should know about. So that's why I would say that statement number 4 is wrong. So the correct option should be B. Coming to the next question, what is CAS9 that is often mentioned in news? Often mentioned in news along with CRISPR. This is called as CRISPR Cas9, the gene editing tool. Now in the CRISPR Cas9, and you would see this in multiple news articles that have come over maybe last 3 years, maybe more than 5-6 times in a year, you'll see that there has been a news about CRISPR Cas9, which is a gene editing tool. And in this So what happens in this gene editing tool is that this CRISPR Cas9 will go at the place, that place where the gene has to be edited will be cut out and it will be replaced. So this cutting that happens, it happens with the help of Cas9, which is, you can say in a way, called as molecular scissors. And this keyword is very well present here. So that's why the correct option is A. And that's why I would say that was the one of the easiest question that was asked from science and technology. Let's move on to the next question. Which of the following statements is not correct? A. Hepatitis B is transmitted much like HIV. Let's hold on to this. Hepatitis B, unlike hepatitis C, does not have a vaccine. So we are saying hepatitis B does not have a vaccine, which is completely false. At least, 10 years back, 12 years back, there was, and if you go back 10, 12 years, you all would know that everyone was being administered with hepatitis B vaccine. And that's why hepatitis B vaccine does exist. And that's why a statement like this, it makes it an easy question. Because hepatitis B vaccine was administered to all. Maybe many of you have taken it, or maybe all of you have taken it. Because this was being administered by the government of India and many private pharmaceutical companies were also providing it. So that's why hepatitis B does have a vaccine. So that's why completely wrong statement. So correct option will be B. So even if you don't know about A, D and C, statement B actually made this question easier. So I would say that it was easy to moderate level difficult question. Next question. With reference to communication technologies, which is or are the differences between LTE and VoLTE? So LTE is long-term evolution and this is voice over long-term evolution. First statement says LTE is commonly marketed as 3G. Wrong. It is marketed as 4G. So this is wrong. And VoLTE, so no need of reading this. Statement 1 is wrong. So 1 only is gone. 1 and 2 is gone. Statement 2 says LTE is data only technology. This is correct. VoLTE is voice only. No, not voice only. It is voice over. So voice, it's not voice only. So basically the difference is that if you have VoLTE, the internet would still work even if you are on call with the same SIM card. But if it was only LTE, in that case, you would not have a good reception of the internet if you are on the call or if you are talking to someone using that particular SIM card. So that's why this was the difference between LTE and VoLTE, but both are 4G. So that's why it's not voice only, but it is voice over technology. That's why statement 2 is also wrong. So this is also gone. You are left with only this statement. Let's move on to the next question. There are 3 statements that have been given. First statement is, according to the Indian Patents Act, a biological process to create a seed can be patented in India. And this is a wrong statement. And if you have been following everything that happened with Monsanto, you would know the answer to this question. So last year only what happened is that the courts ruled against Monsanto, saying that the seeds cannot be patented in India, and that's why the legal battle that was going on with Monsanto and Indian farmers, that ended there because the courts finally gave a decision in the favor of Indian farmers against Monsanto. And because of that and all the controversy that surrounded Monsanto, I think this is why the question has been asked. So this is a wrong statement. So this is wrong and this is wrong. Now 3 is present in both, so we need not even see what is 3. I need to check with statement 2. In India, there is no Intellectual Property Appellate Board. That is completely wrong because there is a board that looks after all these kind of issues, and that's why statement 2 is correct. So the correct option here would be B. Next, for the measurement estimation of which of the following are satellite images or remote sensing data used? Chlorophyll content in the vegetation of a specific location. We will have to hold on to this. Greenhouse gas emissions from rice paddies of specific location. This can be done. Land surface temperatures of specific location. This can be done. And anyway, 3, if you see, is present in 3 of the statements. So again, if you have to check with this question, the very first statement that should be checked is statement number 3, which is actually correct. So all these are correct. Only one can be eliminated. Now, Apart from this as I said is correct. So we are still left with B and D. This is gone. Now this actually is, I would say, a difficult question. Mainly because of statement number 1. Statement number 1, whether it is correct or not, it's very difficult for you to judge. And if at all, you can do that only on the basis if you know what is HISIS. If you remember, last year there was one satellite that was launched. Although there were 30 satellites, one of them was HISIS. And HISIS was actually meant for hyperspectral imaging. Now, if you try to understand the meaning of hyperspectral imaging, and if you had done your research at the point when this was being launched, you would very easily be able to understand why statement 1 is also correct. Now, when it comes to hyperspectral imaging, what happens is that the image that has been taken for a given area, for each and every pixel, what we try to do is we try to get the entire spectrum of every pixel. And that's why it gives us an idea about each and every color that is present in a given area. So that's why if you look at the application of such an imaging, it can be ecological, like looking at chlorophyll or other pigments that are present. Plus you can talk about the atmosphere and clouds. You can talk about biomass burning, that is in the case of rice paddies, etc., because it will give you an idea about the temperature, and that's why surface temperature can also be measured using such an imaging. So that's why this question actually is a current affairs question from the launch that was done by ISRO last year. So correct option would be 1, 2 and 3, and as I said, this would be called as a difficult question. So these were all the questions that came from the field of science and technology. Now, as I said at the beginning itself, this was not an easy paper at all. Compared to last year, I would say that it was actually a more difficult paper than the last year's paper also. So from science and tech point of view, I would say that it was a difficult paper. So I hope the discussions that we have done would help you analyze how the questions have come, why certain questions have come, and how should we proceed with each and every question. So this is where I'll end the session. Thank you very much for joining.